everyone, hope you find yourself having a great day. I've got a fun little project today. For any of you that might be familiar with Minecraft, there's a character, this guy right here, named Steve, and lots of people have been animating Steve online through Cinema 4D with the help of a great character rig provided online at Planet Minecraft. It's available for free download. There's two versions. There's a free version and a paid version. It's an excellent rig for character animation. Makes it very simple for anybody that might want to be getting into it. Both the free and paid version are awesome, and hats off to the guy that developed this. What an awesome job you've done. So let's get started. I'm going to be using Cinema 4D R15 for this, and I've got Steve loaded up, the rig loaded up here, and the rig by default has many aspects that you can control. All various controls on Steve: eyes, eyebrows, mouth movement. You can apply different weapons, skins, just a ton. There must be at least 100 different settings here that make it very easy to manage a character. Again, hats off to the guy that developed this. What great work you've done. So with Steve comes a controller with this little tag here. It brings up this control. I'm going to lock it into position with my little lock icon. That way the controller is going to be available for me throughout the whole time we're managing him. Steve's divided into halves. You've got a left half and a right half. His torso and his head, arms and legs. They're color coded. So if you're facing Steve from the front, we're looking at him from the side now. If you face Steve from the front, green will represent his left side, and blue will represent his right side. So I've got my timeline set at 100 frames, and what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate Steve in groups of 10 keyframes. So we're going to start at 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on up to 100 keyframes. So the first thing we're going to do is establish his initial pose at keyframe 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to select his foot. Let me go over some of these real quick for you. If you select his foot and move it, it controls his foot, his knee, and his leg. If you select his torso, this little icon here, and you'll see they're dimmed when they're activated, it selects and moves his entire torso, which controls the groups for his arms, head, and legs. If you select his head, it allows you to move that head, rotate it, in all different degrees. Alright, so keep that in mind when you're handling these controls. We're going to be working with feet, torso, and hands. Hands move his arms, shoulders, and elbows. Feet move his feet, knees, and hips. Torso obviously moves everything connected. So at keyframe 0, we're going to begin by selecting one of his feet, and we're going to move it forward so that its heel is on this grid line that you see here in our workspace. Just about like that, and at this point keyframe it. We're going to select the opposite foot, the blue foot, and we're going to move it back so that it is in its position where its corner is lined up with this ground plane again. We're going to keyframe it. Okay, we're going to select his torso, which is represented by the one on his waist, and what we're going to do is we're not going to move it, but we're going to establish a keyframe for keyframe 0. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move forward to frame 10 with his torso selected. We're going to move his torso, and you'll see that these legs will alternate where his leading leg then becomes his trailing leg. So we're going to move him forward to where it's about at that same angle where its corner of that leg is on the ground surface, and we're going to keyframe it. And what we've done is keyframed our torso. Now the leg that moved, we got a free move here by moving his torso because the skeletal contents are connected to his torso. All we have to do is select that leg, the left one, which is indicated by the green bone inside there. Simply keyframe it, then we'll select the right leg that needs to be moved, and we're going to move it forward again to that relative aspect where the heel's touching the ground surface, and then keyframe it. So we're going to move to keyframe 20. We're going to just follow these steps over and over. We're going to select his torso, move it forward, keyframe it, select the leg that moves on its own, keyframe it, and then we're going to move the leg that needs to be moved, that left leg forward again to something like that, and keyframe it. I'm going to move to keyframe 30, select his torso, move it forward, keyframe it, the leg that moved on its own, we're just going to keyframe it, no need to move it. We'll select that one that needs to be moved and move it forward. What we're doing is going to create a basic walk cycle here. We've moved it forward, don't forget to keyframe it. It's easy to overlook these keyframes. You'll do the move, but sometimes you'll forget to keyframe. So we're going to move into keyframe 40, select his torso, going to move him forward, keyframe his torso, the leg that moved on its own, we're just going to keyframe it. We're going to select the leg that hasn't moved and move it. Keyframe it. Into keyframe 50, select his torso, and move him forward, keyframe that, the leg that's moved on its own, just keyframe it, select the leg that hasn't, move it, and keyframe it. And you're just going to move along through all of our increments of 10 and keyframe all these. Until we're at keyframe 100. We'll go to 70 there. We're going to move his torso. Select the leg that moved on its own, keyframe it, and move the one that needs to be moved. Keyframe that. Move into 80. Select his torso. Keyframe that. Keyframe the leg that moved on its own. Select the leg that needs to be moved. Move it. Keyframe it. Go into frame 90. Select his torso. And we'll end him standing upright. Well, we'll do that on frame 100. Keyframe that. Keyframe that. Move the leg that needs to be moved. Keyframe that. And then we'll move into keyframe 100. Select his torso. We're going to move him to where he's standing upright with this final leg. Keyframe that. Select the leg that moved. Keyframe that. And then we'll select the one that needs to be moved, and we'll have it end up vertical as well. Keyframe that. So if we move back, we'll see that if we scrub through our timeline here, we've got Steve walking in a rather rigid fashion. That's okay. We've at least established some bases that we can now tweak. So let's give consideration to his arms. Let's go into our perspective view. Arm movement is opposite of leg movement on the side of the arm. So for this example, I'm going to select his right arm, this here, and because his right leg is back, his right arm should be forward. So we'll make sure we're at keyframe 0. We're going to move his right arm forward, and I'm going to move that arm out just a little bit from his body as well. Okay, we'll go ahead and keyframe that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move forward a full 10 frames, and we're going to now make this arm opposite of where his leg position is. So we'll move it back, keyframe that, and we're just going to continue on in increments of 10, keyframing that arm opposite of his leg. Don't forget to push your keyframe button there. If you don't, it's easy to overlook it. You'll end up moving things but not keyframing them. So we'll move that back, keyframe it, go to 60, move it forward, keyframe it, 70, move it back, keyframe it, 80, move it forward, keyframe it. If you're off, if you give a little variation in the movement, it'll just help make it look a little bit more believable. So we're going to move that one back, keyframe it, and go to frame 100, and we're going to have them hanging down to the side. Okay, so if we scrub through this, you can see we got his arm moving a little bit. We're going to work on his other one. We're going to work on his left arm. We'll make sure we're at keyframe 0. We'll move him out a little bit with his arm. And his leg position is forward, so that leg is forward. Let's just verify it. The arm needs to be back. So we'll move it back, and we're going to keyframe it. Now we're just going to move in increments of 10 so that we're opposite of that leg. And we'll just keep going here and get all these keyed. And we'll get in there, halfway there. See, if some swings of the arm are a little greater, a little less, it just makes it look more real. And we'll get to 100 and we'll bring his arm down to his side, keyframe that. So if we rotate around, get a look at Steve here. Try to get a good view. Let's rotate him, and you can see he's walking and his arms are swinging. Still very stiff and rigid at this point. We're going to tweak that, give him a little bit of variation here shortly. Okay, so let's go back into our side view. Make sure we're at keyframe 0. What we're going to do is, when his legs are apart like that, mid-stride, his body is going to be lower than it would be if both legs are together. Okay, so what we're going to do is, when they're apart like this, we're going to lower his body and possibly get a little bit of knee bend out of that. So let's select our torso on keyframe 0. We're going to bring Steve down a little bit, keyframe that. We're going to go to the next position where his legs are mid-stride, bring him down a little bit, keyframe that, and it looks like it's going to be every 20. We're going to just bring him down a little bit, and at 30 we're going to bring him down a little bit, and at 40 same thing, keyframe that. So we got a knee bend off of that one. I went down a little further. Bring him down, keyframe that, at 60 down a little bit, keyframe that, at 70, keyframe him, at 80, keyframe him, and at 90, bring him down a touch, and then at 100 he's at rest, so he's at a high position. Okay, for these high positions, which look to be about mid key, what we're going to do is we're going to bring him up just a touch. That final one, I'm going to leave him where he's at. But 95, it's going to be half increments. It's going to be on the 5. I'm going to bring him up just a touch where his legs straighten out a little bit. Key it. Back him up. Straighten him out. I'm going to key that. 75, we're going to straighten him up. Key him. 65, we'll straighten him up a little bit. And we'll key that. 50, 55, and we'll straighten him up. Give him a little height there. Key it. Don't forget to key it. 45, we'll bring him up. Key it. 35, let's bring him up. Key it. 25, bring him up. Key it. 15, same thing. And you see our path that we're creating for Steve is now getting a little undulation going on with it. Key it, and then at 0. So if we move through this and watch Steve walk, you see he's getting some up and down movement on his body. And that's what we want. Let's go into our perspective view here and to have a look at it from this angle. And you can see Steve's beginning to bobble up and down a little bit, getting his swag going. Okay, so there's other things we can do. Let's go into the side view again. Make sure we're keyframe 0. What we're going to do is we're going to put some knee bends on Steve as his leg, his trailing leg, the leg that's in back, moves forward. So let's take a look here. We've got, right now it appears to be his right leg is moving forward. And so at mid stride, at about 5, we want to bring that leg up. So with his right leg selected, at keyframe 5, we're going to bring it up and you'll see it bend a little bit. Keyframe that. We're going to move to 15. Or is it 15? Let's see here. So 5. It's going to be 25. So we're going to move that leg up. A little bit of a bend. Keyframe that. So we're going to skip 35. It's going to be at 45. We're going to bend that knee. Keyframe that. We're going to skip 55 and go into 65. We'll bring that knee up, key it. We're going to skip 75, go to 85. We're going to bring that knee up, key it, and at 100 we're going to leave it just about like it is, but we're going to leave that alone. Okay, so we've got a little knee bend happening there. Now we're going to do the opposite leg. We're going to grab that left leg and let's follow it and get an idea of what we need to do here. It needs to bend on its forward swing. Right now it's forward, but we need to have it bend on its forward swing. So as it comes into 15, we need to bring it up, keyframe it. We're going to skip 25. It's going to be at 35. We're going to bring it up, keyframe it. We're going to skip 45. It's going to be on 55. We need to bring it up, key it. We're going to skip 65, and at 75, we're going to bring it up, key it. We're going to skip 85. It's going to be at 95. We'll bring it up and key it. So if we hop into our perspective view and rewind Steve, you'll see now that he's got some knee bends on his forward sweeping movement of his leg. And it's just giving it a little bit more believability. Something else we can do is we can take Steve's head, and let's analyze this for a second. As he moves, that head would tend to go forward, but when people walk, they tend to be led by the direction of their head. So, which would lead me to believe that as you're moving forward, that mid-stride, when your feet would be together, which it looks like it's going to be on the 5s and the 15s, or it's going to be on the 5s, that head needs to tilt forward just a touch. So we're going to establish his head position, make sure we've got it selected on 0. We're going to keyframe that. We're going to move to 5, and we're going to tilt it forward just a little bit, key it. We're going to go to 15, tilt it back a little bit. We're going to go to 25, tilt it forward a little bit. And go to 35, tilt it back a little bit. And 45, tilt it forward. These are subtle movements. We're going to go to 55, move it back a little bit. We're going to go to 65, we'll tilt it forward a little bit. 75, back a little bit. 85, forward a touch. 95, back a little bit. And at 100, we're going to leave it where we'll just bring it down a little bit here. If I grip it and key out that. So let's back up and see what we've got. Got a little bit of head movement as Steve walks there. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I think what we can do now is have a little fun with some of these other controllers. We'll select Steve. We're going to unlock our view so we get access to our other controls here. And what we're going to do is we're going to have Steve, let's figure out the distance that he walks and get our camera set up at the end there where we can see him. And drop a camera in and hop into a camera. So that's at the end. That's at the beginning. At my beginning keyframe, I'm going to rotate this camera a touch. Put a keyframe for it. Move towards the end where Steve is, and we'll swing around here. Move him about right there. Keyframe our camera at the end. Alright. So about halfway, let's see, about right here. Let's have Steve's head turn and take a look at it. So I'm going to select that rig. I'm going to go back into the tag, the controller tag, lock that down for just a brief moment. And for his head, I'm going to insert, make sure it's selected, I'm going to insert a keyframe right here. And I'm going to move it forward about 5 frames. And with that, I'm going to tilt that head down a little bit. And then I'm going to swing it over towards the camera. Maybe up would have been better. Add a keyframe there. I'm going to move into keyframe. I'll move into keyframe 55. Keep that head towards me. Keyframe it. And into 65, we're going to massage that a little bit. Adjust that out so that his head turns towards us as he's walking. And let's have some fun with his other attributes. I'm going to unlock my controller there, go back into the Steve rig, and I'm going to look for his eyebrows. Let's see if we can find that. Eyebrow rotation, right eyebrow rotation. So let's go back and we'll figure out where he's at about. Let's try to stay even here. Let's get on keyframe 45. We're going to have right eyebrow and left eyebrow rotation. We're going to provide a start keyframe for them. And as he moves into 50, we're going to adjust those eyebrows where he's giving us the old evil look. And we'll keyframe those by control clicking. And you see now his eyebrows. Let me take that off where you can see him a little better. He's walking along, turns his head at us and gives us the evil look. And he straightens back up. Let's get on keyframe 75. Go back into those eyebrows. Give them their keyframe. We'll move forward just a couple of frames. And then we'll sort his eyebrows back out where they're not as angry. Then control click for his eyebrows. And then he finishes up right there. So let's back him up and we'll get a good look at him here. Walking along. Turns and gives us an evil look. And then he comes at rest. So, whoops, these are called hand gestures here. If we pull in his hands and we scroll down here, you've got to kind of look for it. There's so many controls where it says hand. Let's take a look. We got to find that. You can turn on and turn off that hand, and that eliminates that hole that you see. Kind of tricky. There's just so much here. We can give him tools. Actually, we could give him a let's give him a pickaxe, and he's holding a pickaxe in one of his hands. And that pickaxe is all automatically animated at this point. Mouth, pupils, teeth. I don't see the hand. I saw it the other day. Trust me, it's in there. And what it does is it just closes up that hole in his hand. Well, it's there. You'll just have to sort it out and get used to being acclimated to all the controls. But I hope you guys find this interesting. It's a really fun project, and this rig available at Planet Minecraft does an excellent job at making this animation sequence for generating a walk cycle very easy. And once you've kind of mastered that walk cycle, you can have it where Steve's running along. You can have him jump. You can have him jump up on different things and run and slide and do all kinds of stuff that's fun to do. So hope you guys found it interesting. Remember, if you like my channel, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.